Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And if you've been listening to the series I've been doing this past September, oh my gosh, we're still in September 2021. You've been hearing about wonderful, fabulous women in their 50s. If you haven't been listening, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, oh, I kid. Second of all, you can go back and listen because all these great episodes, of course, are on all the places where you listen to podcasts. So I turned 50 September 3rd, and I am someone who loves birthdays. I like presents. I like birthday wishes. I love all that stuff. And 50, I just feel like women, for some reason, the way things are, I won't get off on my tangent, but we don't celebrate age as we get older, and other people certainly don't seem to celebrate it as far as, let's say, the men folk and society. So I really wanted to spend September featuring women in their 50s who are doing what I think are awesome things and inspiring other people. So you've heard from a yogi, a yoga instructor who's an avid runner, great attitude, a plant-based eater, Terry, who's so funny. You've heard from another comedian, Pam, who had a life-threatening illness and came through it and just doesn't let a day go by without, admiring nature. And you heard from Marie from NAMI, who talked about self-care, mental health, and suicide prevention. So those are some of the great topics. If you missed the episodes, please go back. They're definitely worth a listen, I promise you. So, with that, talking about the past, let's talk about the present. I'm about to introduce you to someone who I know well, and I've had the good fortune of working with her on her writing. She is an author, and we've actually been working out together, which is a lot of fun. But I also think she's a someone who likes to help other women, which I appreciate. She's always been there for me. She shares information. She doesn't hoard it, which I think we all need to do to help one another. So without further ado, let me introduce Tina. I know her as Tina Gallagher, and that's how you'll find her as an author, but it's Tina Gallagher Rosalo, and she could tell you how she really wants to be known. So welcome, Tina.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. And you can just call me Tina Gallagher. That's fine.
I'm so used to calling you that, but I mean, that is how
Yeah.
people, if they want to, she's a romance author, by the way, which I totally failed in my introduction. It was pretty shitty, pardon me. But it was like, here's Tina. She writes books. Tina writes romance novels that are sports themed. And she bases them on, she created in her writing the Carolina Waves, which is like this baseball team with a bunch of hotties in tight pants that she writes about. And you can find her under Tina Gallagher. So it is important that you look her up under that name. So Tina, you've been writing about these hot baseball players.
Yes.
Um, you've recently become a full-time author. So there's a lot I want to dive into here. What do you want to talk about
Huh.
first? How you got into writing in the first place, or why you are now full-time author?
Well, we could talk about how I got into writing because it kind of progresses up to, kind of progress up to how I got, how I became a full-time writer.
Okay. All right. So one day you're sitting there and you just had a thought or like, ooh, I got to write this down. How did that
Well,
happen?
it goes back even further, Janine. I'm talking back to grade school. I've always liked writing. I've always liked creative writing. And my friend Lori, who you also know, and I used to write what is now deemed fan fiction for our favorite soap opera characters. And every day we'd come in and we'd trade our things that we wrote, and we used to do that. And that was like the first stuff that I wrote. And then when I got into college, I would always dabble with stories and whatnot. And never did anything with it because, back in the day, my parents were always like, oh, Tina's a really good writer. But it was never like, oh, Tina should be a writer, because writing wasn't a career path, really. It was kind of thought of as an extra, something you did well. Few people excelled at it, but it wasn't something that you looked. That was the way my parents were. You got a real job. So, I got my marketing degree and, got a job. um Forward 10 years, and after high school, after college, and that same girl Lori was publishing a historical romance novel, and she was she's like, you still writing? And I'm like, no. And of course, that time I had two little kids, and I was like, no, like, whatever. And she's just like, well, if you really should join like the Romance Writers of America and start going to meetings and get get involved with that. And it took a couple of years to kind of get a schedule down where I could actually take off one Saturday a month to go to these meetings. But I did that, and that was probably about 20 years ago. And I learned so much from them, and learned how to submit to agents and editors and things like that, and learned how to actually write a book. And that's when I wrote my first book, which is sitting like under my bed somewhere in a drawer collecting dust, and will probably never see the light of day. But it did lead to me getting published with a small publisher, and I had 6 books published with small press through the years, and that's kind of how I did that.
Well, I say, Tina, you should have that book, dust it off, and it should be in a glass case because that was
Yeah,
the stepping stone to get you going. So that's
yeah,
that's kind of good. That's important that you got that started there.
yeah. You have to start somewhere, and I think everybody has that starter book that you have to kind of make all the mistakes on, and then it can't be fixed, so you just kind of put it somewhere. But yeah,
Well, isn't it like that in life from like a lot of things? I mean,
yeah,
few people are like Picasso or you know what I mean, like masterpieces from the beginning.
yep,
You have to start somewhere. And I mean, honestly, I think you probably agree with this because I know I tend to be lazy and procrastinate a lot, excuse me, but the only way you can get better is by doing it, right? You just have to
right,
do it.
yep. It's like they always say, it's like writing is like a muscle. You got to work it out, and you got to keep doing it, and the more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah. So one thing I think for anyone listening who might want to get into something that's been a hobby and you want to go professional, especially writing, finding support and people who are like-minded is obviously important, right? Because you had your
Yes,
friend Lori and
yes,
then she kind of led you to this group and that was really beneficial for you,
yes.
giving you information, sharing stories. And I know now just from having known you for the past several years and talked to you, you have all kinds of connections with other writers and you guys seem to really support one another.
Yeah, we do. My first was the group. It was Pocono Lehigh Romance Writers, and that was a member subsidiary of like the Romance Writers of America, and that was very helpful back in the day when there was internet, but all the information wasn't available on the internet. So they told you who was looking for submissions, what they were looking for, and you would find that out. They'd hand feed it to you. Now everything is online. You could pretty much see it. 3 years ago, I know you didn't ask, but I'm going to say, 4 years ago, actually, I decided that I did not want to publish with the small press anymore because I was seeing that people were publishing independently, and there was just a little more money to be had and more profit to be made, and I could control things a little bit more. And then that's probably the people that now that I'm very involved with. They're all indie publishers, and I've learned how to market the books, and how to research covers and research the market and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely really important to have a support system. And the indie writing market has been super supportive, and they're awesome. They're always ready to willing to share information with you, tell you what they've done, what's worked for them, what hasn't, what you should try. It's really great to have them.
And that's I know based on the people you've talked about, like there are men in these groups. And again, I want to say it's not that I hate men, although some days I do. But there's a lot of women, I'd say predominantly, right? Maybe because of the market or whatever, but a lot of women who are in these groups, in the writing groups
Yeah,
and supporting one another. And I'm not saying that all women do that. We all should. I believe in that. But
right.
but they've been very and you guys are very generous with sharing what you know and what doesn't
Right.
work, like you said, what does work. And that's so helpful. I mean, you want to be a giver. You don't want to just join a group and be a taker, obviously,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
everybody has something to contribute. And I think it's great that you guys do share that way because that is beneficial. Like you could, learn something from someone else without having maybe to make the same mistakes that person made after a year or two or whatever. I think it's great that you guys are so good with one another with the support that way.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, like you said, even like total newbies can have something to contribute, even if it's something is I'm not going to say silly because it's not silly, but even something like maybe they're a master of Word, and an author writes in Word and they didn't know, because you know how it is. You start doing something and you do it the same way. Once you get comfortable, you do it the same way. And but there's people who maybe they're not published, or they're not published yet, or they're just writing their first book, and they don't know a whole lot about book marketing and that kind of thing, and you could help them with that. But maybe they know the computer systems, maybe their job is in tech, or maybe they had a career where in the medical field and you're writing about a doctor or a nurse. It's somebody always has something to contribute. Nobody comes in empty handed to any group, really. Even if you think you do, you don't, because you always know something somebody doesn't.
That's and I want to highlight that point because I think it's so important. Just like, and whether it's with this writing or anything, everybody knows something they can share, and we always each all have something we can learn, right? I mean, I know going attending workshops, sometimes you think, oh, I don't know how good
Right,
it's going to be or what I'm going to learn, but like you said, someone could come in and maybe they're better at word, or maybe they're better or maybe they're in the medical field, and they can help look at what you're writing to make sure it's accurate or whatever.
right,
It is like you said, everybody has something to contribute, and especially the point you made about how we all tend to do things the same way. I mean, I know myself, we all get in the same like rut, right? So someone comes in and they do it differently, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a fresh perspective. So I mean, that's a great point, that everybody always has something to share or contribute.
right.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
great. So we got you to the point, so you were with a press, and then you decided to go indie, and the indie market, like we've been talking about, is very supportive, and there are many very successful authors.
Yes.
And so you were doing your writing
Right.
while doing a full-time job, which kudos to you, because I know you're not a big sleeper, so obviously you weren't sleeping very much,
Right.
and you want it to go full time. And as fate would have it, you are now
Yes.
full time. Do you
I
want to tell
am
us why?
I am now full time. Yeah, my goal was, I had like a 5-year plan. We were 2.5 years into that 5-year plan, and COVID hit, and I got let go from my day job, because of COVID cutbacks back in May of 2020. So I was thrown into the full time writing space before I was totally ready, financially, financially and sales wise. But once I'm here, now that I'm here, I don't plan on stepping back, stepping back. I plan on making it work. So that's just been my goal for the last, year and a half, is to just like write as much as possible, get my books out, and really focus on marketing them and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and well, I mean, things don't always happen. Actually, usually, often they don't happen the way we want them to or plan them to.
Right,
But the idea is, and I talk about this sometimes when I do my laughter yoga or workshops, the basic rule in improvisation, yes, and right. So
right,
we get something, and sometimes, a lot of times, it's not what we wanted. It may even seem and appear and look like the opposite of what we wanted.
yeah,
But what are you going to do about it? Because we all do this, like being stuck in traffic on a simple example. We might curse, we might scream, but then where are you going? You're still
right,
sitting in traffic. So yes, and okay, you lost your job. It was before you wanted to, but the and part, okay, and I wanted to do this eventually, so let's make this work now. And you have been, which is great.
yeah. Slow, slower than I wanted to, but I did plan a pretty aggressive calendar for myself. So now I'm just trying to rein it in. But yeah, it's been going good so far. So far, so good. But and thankfully, I have a very supportive husband, as you know. Like, he's great, and he has. It's not kind of like, now it's a year and a half later. He's like, all right, Tina, like, you're not making millions of dollars with these books. When are you getting a job? He's just like, it's going to happen. You're doing all the right things. You're meeting all the right people, and you're learning everything. You're learning what you need, and just keep putting the books out. So that's what I'm doing.
So yes, we have to give a shout out to Tony. So see
Yeah.
that I'm not. I know people who listen are probably like, oh, all she talks about is women. I
Yeah.
just like to promote women, but
Yeah.
I like some guys too, and Tony's a
Yeah.
good one.
He is
Anthony's
a
a
good
good
ad.
one.
Yes, he is. He
He
is
is good.
definitely one of the good ones.
Yes. And again, though, to that point of support system, I mean, sure, you can do things on your own, you could try it, but having that support system, whether it's friends, those fellow writers, a supportive husband, that is definitely, I would think, key and part of this whole process. Because if it was the opposite, if Anthony wasn't supportive, or if he was obstinate or something, that you don't need those kind of obstacles, right? So it helps
Right.
to have people who are on your side and helping you along the way.
Yeah, it's definitely very helpful, because especially when I was working full time, I worked 7 to 4 on during the week, and came home, and I'd usually cook dinner and then sit down and write. And then on the weekends, I would disappear to my favorite little coffee shop, and be up there for 4, 6, 8 hours. It just depended on how the words were flowing and what I needed to get done and what else was, if there was something else going on. And he was always very very understanding about it. Well, it was almost like he even planned it and says, well, you're going to be up at Kay's writing today, right? Like, or tomorrow, like, are we doing anything other than you're going up to Kay's writing? So he actually, planned it into the schedule and knew. So he was very good about it.
So you mentioned so because of COVID is, kind of what led to you losing your job, and COVID has changed so much. So part of that too with COVID is you haven't had your cute little writing place, that coffee place, because they
I
were
have not.
closed a lot and then only open maybe for pickup or delivery or
Yeah.
whatever. So you've had to change where you write and where you are productive or not productive depending
Yeah.
on your day, right?
Yeah, or not productive, as you know. Yeah, it's I used to write at a local place called Kay's Daily Grind in Moscow, Pennsylvania. And I just loved it up there. And for whatever reason, I just wrote really well up there. And they have not opened their interior since COVID, since the COVID shutdown. So they have not opened inside. So I've just been writing at home on my couch. I'm in my office. As you can see, it's like in a little bit of a state of construction, because before this was kind of like my drop off place. It was like I'd be in here a little bit, but for the most part, it was just, storage, and I'd keep some stuff in here. But now I'm going to make it more of a place where I actually sit and conduct business and write, and, make it like I'm a little bit professional.
Well, and that's okay. So we mentioned support system. Another thing, again, anybody who's looking to maybe transition into, writing full time or whatever, it's important that you have that space too. That's for you, for your, and
Yeah,
again, it's what works for you. You used to be able to write, like you said, very well at K's,
right,
So so I think it's key, like, don't worry about necessarily what works for others. Try it. And if it doesn't work for you, it's okay. Because, like Tina used to write well out in public, but that's not an option. That was her place to go to place. But having this space now, like you said, it's important because it's your professional space. You want to get everything out of the office that doesn't have to do with your business, because you want to
right.
keep it focused. So that's helpful, right? For people who want to get into this.
It is helpful. And now, like I said, I have this space. I mean, I know writers who just have a little nook in their dining room or, in a corner of a room, but you definitely need somewhere to keep your plan. Like, like I have up hanging on the wall over there, it's a big board with sticky notes all over it, and that I can look at and see exactly what I need to do. It just makes it a lot easier, but you can't have, even if you have like a little bit of a mobile office where you have, your computer case and you have a planner in it and all your stuff that you have to do, and you could pull it out and look at it on the dining room table or something. You definitely need some kind of space when you're, you can't just be have stuff all over the place, because you need to have some sort of organization.
Yeah, and you made another good point about the calendar or the plan, right?
Yeah,
And I've seen your calendar there, and I know you
yeah,
love those really pretty calendars, and you've
yeah,
gifted me with one, which
yeah,
I love because I tend to like just love them and then I don't use them enough,
yeah,
which is shame on me. But that is key too, to have the plan and to write things down. And I mean, even if you have to calibrate or readjust, right? 'Cause you've had to readjust or recalculate some of your
my
what you're
schedule.
working on now,
Yeah,
the books, but that's okay because having the plan and seeing it and looking at it and just kind of seeing where you're at, that's important. And then making note of certain milestones so that you can actually celebrate and congratulate yourself and give
yeah.
yourself like, wow, look at the books that I've written over the past year. And you should do that because you've done a lot of great work.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's I like having the planner. Like I have spreadsheets where on my in Google Docs where I have I have my series Bible and with all my information, and I have like promo information of like what, when I do a launch, what I spend, how it went, like, so I can track, like, do I want to use that promo company again, or do I want to do that again, or wasn't it worth it? But I also keep numbers, and not such detailed, but at least some numbers in my calendar, or in my planner, just because it's just easier, um to kind of pull out paper. I'm still old fashioned, as you said, in our 50s here. Like, we're the paper generation. And there's something about sitting there and writing something down physically as opposed to typing it into the computer. It sticks into my head better. And I know, I just like it better. I'm not as fancy as some people. I mean, some people do, who I know, do planners, and they're beautiful. I mean, they're color coordinated, and they're I would spend like all my time on the planner. If I did that, I wouldn't get anything else done. But I try to make mine look nice, because that's another part of it. Just like anything else, you want to make your space look nice. You want to make it comfortable. You want to make the planner look nice. It's just kind of nice. It is kind of nice to go in there and look at it and keep it up to date, instead of just being a piece of boring paper sitting on my desk. I like it, and it's portable. I could bring it with me and look at it, glance at it.
Well, I definitely agree with you with the writing. And I mean, maybe it is our generation, Gen X, but I mean, there's also, and I think this is kind of important to note. I used to tell this when I taught part time at King's College. I would tell the students, because a lot of students now take notes in their computers, but there is actual research that says we
Yes,
do retain information
there
better
is. Yeah,
when we write it with our own hand,
yeah,
because there's just something with the thought process. And I know for myself, if I'm writing like stand up material that I'm doing or whatever, I hate to type it. I mean, that seems so unnatural. Of course, there are many times that I'll write a joke and then 2 weeks later I go, what the hell is that? I have
yeah.
no idea.
Oh,
My
because the
my
pen is,
handwriting's
yeah.
horrible. So
My
I don't know. I'm
handwriting's
like, is
terrible
that,
anymore.
banana or banshee? I don't know what that word
Yeah.
is, but it's important. And again, people have to do what works for them. But I think that's kind of helpful. Like you said, when you're writing, it does kind of stick with you more.
Yeah, it is. And I know when I used to take notes, and back in my college days and even in high school, I used to take notes and I would do them almost like in a bullet point. And then when I was taking a test or having to remember the details, like I could actually picture that in my head as I was. Whereas if you type something, it just doesn't work for me. So again, maybe it's a generational thing, but I do know, like you said, there were studies done, but there is something about writing, even like with my board that I have on the wall. I write them on little sticky notes and stick them on there, and it's just nice to have that physical thing instead of just seeing it on a spreadsheet or on a Word document.
Yeah, you're right. It probably is generational, because I'm sure the like Gen Z, is it, or whatever the heck they are, like so digital, but I like stuff. So
Well,
I like
my
stuff.
children are millennials, and they're 24 and 25, and they used to. I know my son. Well, both of them really in high school did the flashcard thing, and I wasn't the one who told them about that. That was like, I don't know if it was a teacher tip or like they did, and they used to do the flashcard thing. So I think even for them, no matter what they want to think, kind of like you know you want to be a certain way, but you're not. Like I think they think this works for them, but I think the other way is probably a little better, because again there have been studies done about it, because even with ebooks, like when I read ebook, I just retain what a physical book is better than an ebook. I don't know why, which shouldn't say that most of my sales are from ebooks, but
Go
like
ebooks.
yeah, I mean, no, it's just even reading. So even when I read a how-to book or some kind of craft book, I try to get the physical book because I do retain more information for whatever reason. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, again, I think the research supports that. So let's talk about your books.
okay.
I mentioned that you've written several books, but right now you're kind of possibly wrapping up, although we don't know, maybe it
Yeah,
won't be.
yeah.
This series of the Carolina Waves, which is a fictional team,
Hmm.
like an MLB team, and they're romance books, a little bit spicy, right?
Yeah, they're spicy. Yeah.
Um, they're spicy, but
Not as
I don't know
spicy
if
as
I
some, but they're spicy. Yeah.
Right, right, and they're nothing, and they're spicy, but they're not spicy like, specialty spicy, like, "Oh, they like monkeys to watch,"
Yeah,
like,
they're not
nothing
erratic.
strange.
Yeah, they're just spicy. Yeah.
And I'm judging when I say strange. If you like a monkey watching you have sex, that is your business. I don't know where you'd find a monkey. I guess you could find one easily enough on
Yeah.
eBay or Amazon. But so let's talk about, you're working on what is kind of supposed to be the last of the series, and it's kind of fun because it is, well, fun for me, I think, to read it, because it's a lot of Scranton references where we live,
Yes.
and people who are Office fans kind of might like these kind of details. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this last book that you're working on? Or I shouldn't say last, because you could have more in the series. We don't know,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'm already planning another novella for it. Right now, this is the sixth book in the series, and that's all I planned. The hero of the book, he's from Bergen County, New Jersey. He comes from a big Greek family, and everything that goes with that. And so, after being living as a professional baseball player for how many years, When he goes home, it's a little bit smothering. As much as he loves his family, it's a little smothering to have everybody in his business. He went to school in Scranton, to Lackawanna College, played baseball, which has, they have a great baseball program. And he became a professional baseball player. And so he loves Scranton. He always liked Scranton. He also played here for the Rail Riders. And so when he's looking for a place to move, he decides to move here, to Scranton. And because he likes the city, and it's only 2 hours away from his family, which is far enough that they're not stopping by knocking on his door on a Sunday morning. But it's close enough that he can also go home and, make his mom happy that he's still coming to visit, because she's very much the mother hen. So yeah, it's based in Scranton, which is a lot of fun to write. I did years ago, I did a story called Prescription for Love that was based in Scranton, and that was fun to write as well, because, as they always say, write what you know. I've lived in Scranton my whole life, so I know it. I've made references to Cooper's. I have made references to The Office in the book. But yeah, it's been fun.
I love that. You mentioned, he's Greek. He has a big family, the
Yeah.
hero in your book. So, people might think, and I'll admit, I don't love to read, and I'm always embarrassed to admit that. So I don't read a lot of books, and I've never really gotten into before romance novels. But it's not just, you said they're a little spicy. They're not too spicy, but there's also, I love the idea too that they're about family too. I mean, there's a lot in this book about like his connection and love for his family. And that's something I think anybody, regardless of whether you are into romance novels or just any kind of books, that you can totally relate to, right? I think that's
Yeah.
just very
Yeah.
relatable.
I try to put little tidbits, like in all my books. They, if nothing else, in book one of this series, the guy has a daughter. He's a single dad. Book two, the guy is like what you would think is a player, but he's very close to that little girl of his best friend, and they're very good friends. They do anything for each other. So there's definitely, the relationship connection. Leo, who is the character in this sixth book that I'm writing, he goes home. His parents own this like Greek deli and little corner store, and he's a professional baseball player. And off season, he goes home and works at the store. And his sister's like Leo, like, why do you do this? Like, why are you doing this? And he's like, look, mom and dad they don't want me to buy them a new house. They don't want they want me here. This is what they want. So I think, that kind of shows his character. It shows a lot about the character without me having to do a 2-chapter dump of information about him and saying, well, he loves his mother, he loves his father, he loves his family. That shows that he loves his family, like how he respects his mom, he respects his family. And his sister, that same sister lives in his house that he bought out in Bergen County. It got her out of the house, and then he's traveling half the year and he's there. So it's kind of a joke, like any house he has. Well, I don't want, Angie coming here. She might like, roost like she did in my other house. But it's kind of like an ongoing like joke, between them. But, he loves the fact that she lives there and they're very close. And just little things like that. I try to put little tidbits like that and that show the relationship. And it also shows what kind of person he is without, again, having to just spell everything out. Because, obviously the readers pick up on that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and they could tell based on their, the character's actions.
Right.
I know your one story, the one guy was helping taking care of his romance. The woman, he was interested in her dog and was very
Yeah.
attentive to taking care. And
Yeah.
that tells you, like, it
Yeah.
tells you character. Like, what is the one saying when you go out on a date with someone, that pay attention to how they treat the wait staff if you're at a restaurant or whatever. See if they're
Right.
rude to people, that kind of says something about their character. So
Right.
with all those little actions and their behaviors, the reader can tell, oh, we like this guy, this is a good guy.
Yeah, and they're nice to the fans. That's one thing. They've always said, oh, they're good with fans. They take the time and they, say hello to people that talk to them, and take care, like you're saying, the wait staff, and that kind of thing. Just being nice to people, not being like prima donnas. And I think those little actions do tell a lot about people. And my guys are all nice. I don't know, there's always like the stereotypical baseball players, but my guys are good guys.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, because I know they're in the one, in your one story, you have a guy who kind of cheated in the past, but he ends up being a good guy. But
Yeah.
do you ever have plans to write a real asshole, like a real jerk, or would you not want to do that just because you wouldn't like him yourself?
I probably wouldn't like them myself. I've done more, like my last book. In fact, I know you, Janine, edits my books, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's like, he is an asshole. He's an idiot." And she's like, "He's really not that bad." And I'm like, "But I had him where I was initially writing him where he was really bad." And I didn't like him. And I was like, I don't think women are going to like him. And I don't think, my readers, as they're reading the book, like, you have to semi fall in love with the hero, and you have to, like, the heroine has to be likable. And, even if they have like a little flaw, you have to prove, like, again, those little details that these guys are likable. And I didn't want to have him be a total jerk and totally diss the heroine. And, 10 chapters in, people are like, well, he's just an idiot. And then at the end of the book, like, yep, nope, I never would have. I mean, as it was in my first book, the hero cheated on the heroine back in college when they were together. And that was like 15 years earlier. And they are still the source of, that is still the source of my 1-star reviews on this book. And it's the only thing, the few 1-star reviews that I have on it are like, well, he cheated on her, once a cheater, always a cheater. Like, I never, so it's just, I am more careful about, I do try to make them likable. I thought 15 years was enough time to have passed because we've all changed since college, but apparently for some people it's not. But everybody's got their issues. Everybody's got their own issues and their own triggers and that kind of stuff. But I try to write, like I always say, I always laugh, I'm shallow. I watch movies, I read books, I like to be entertained. I don't want to sit there and cry. I don't want to sit there. I'm not a scary movie person. I'm not an angsty. I'm not a Nicholas Sparks. Although my daughter had me watching those movies years ago and I'd sit there like blubbering like a fool. I'm not that kind of writer. I just like to tell a good story and, have everybody be happy at the end. And, there might be a little angst, but that's as far as it goes. I don't want, nobody's killing anybody and nobody's cheating on anybody or totally leaving them. That kind of stuff all happens off the page.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not looking for someone to be, like, going through a box of Kleenex crying, right? Or
No,
just, like,
I
having
don't
their
do
heart
that.
wrenching.
No,
Yeah.
because I'd be crying as I'm writing it, and it would take me even longer to write a book. So yeah, I'm just too, at this point in my life, maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but like at this point in my life, I'm just like, it's got to be a hormone thing. I just like blubber like a fool over those little um, things like that. More the emotional things. I get more. So I mean, now, like I said, my books are emotional, and my characters have an emotional connection, but nobody is. Again, nobody's dying, and no animals will be killed in my books. You could be certain of that. The dog can never die. This is not Marley and Me, which I could not read, by the way, because I knew the dog died.
Well, and you're a pet lover and you have a
Yes,
beautiful, Thea is your
yes,
beautiful, is it Irish setter slash,
golden
golden?
retriever. Yeah, Irish setter, golden retriever mix.
And I can attest because I love her. She's my little furry friend. She is
Is
very friendly and I
she's
love her
very
to
fun.
death. She's a sweetie.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. So I do have, as you mentioned, I have a novella that is there's an Irish setter in it actually, and that Irish setter, his name is Finnegan. That he actually came before Thea. We just adopted her back in December, and that came out last year. But he, yeah, that was one of the things. Like he was adopted as well, and the heroine owns him, and he was adopted, and he doesn't like men. He was abused by men. He doesn't like men, but he liked the hero. So as any animal, any dog owner, and most people know, you don't care if people don't like your dog, but if your dog doesn't like a person, you really sit and wonder why that your dog, because like if honestly, if somebody walked in here and Thea started growling, I would seriously wonder what was going on, because she loves everybody, and all of my dogs have been like that. So that was another kind of like little thing. She was like, oh, he doesn't like anybody, but he loved the hero.
So that, and that's, I mean, that's kind of like, again, right, what you're seeing this in your own life, like you've
Yeah,
had many dogs, so you can write about it.
yeah.
And okay, and so, and you mentioned, you're not looking for people, no one's going to die or anything like that, but there's a place for everything, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
you want people to have a good story, you want them to be entertained, and that's great. I mean, there's enough room out there for all kinds of books.
yeah.
So that's, I mean, if that's what you're writing and that's what you like to write, that's what people, okay, we know when we pick this book up, we're going to have a good story and we're going to be happy, at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I think there's a lot of people like me who just want a good story. There are the people that love angsty stuff. Like, it was funny because there was a friend of mine who I know, and she used to always only read like horror. She's always into all the, like, Halloween's her favorite time of year. She's got a spider tattoo. Like, she likes all the scary, gory stuff. And she only read my first book because I wrote it. And like, that was the only reason she read it. And so now she's like, I'm addicted to romance. So now she's reading all these other romance novels, and like her boyfriend's like laughing at her because he's like, you would never, she just would never read them before. But she's like, I love them. She's like, they have great stories and they're just fun to read. So, and
That's
again, there's things too, but what mood you're in. I know I don't read
yep.
really scary stuff, but like sometimes I'll want to read a historical romance. Sometimes I'll want to read a suspense. Sometimes I just want something contemporary like I write. So, and
Sometimes
there's
you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
Exactly, exactly. But there's something out there for everybody. And, a writer friend of mine, Jonathan Mayberry, who he actually writes thrillers. So talk about, the other end of the spectrum. He said one time, there's romance in every book. The thing that makes romance novels different is that the characters have to end up at the end, like where he might put romance in his, there might be romance in his book, but that's going to be the catalyst for the bad guy. He's going to kill the woman and to get back at the man or something like that. But like in a romance novel, it is literally a rule that there has to be a happily ever after. So the characters have to, or at least happy for now. So the characters have to end up together at the end in some way, shape, or form, or they have plans to stay together at the end. So that is definitely a rule of romance. But other than that, anything else goes. There's, again, romantic suspense, there's sci-fi, there's all kinds of stuff.
Which, and you mentioned, excuse me, to circle back earlier about the indie market and how you're friends with so many writers who are indie. That's kind of the great and cool part, I think, when I look at it, about indie now, because there's so many different niches. They can write about,
Exactly.
like you said, historical romance, sci-fi romance, and that's kind of cool. That gives the audiences more, I think.
Yeah, and that is actually one of the reasons why the indie market grew. I mean, other than the fact that places like Amazon and Barnes and Noble gave us an platform to get started on, because it all started with indie book or ebooks with the indie market. But traditional publishing, they very much want, like they'll always say, they want the same thing only different. So they want whatever works. I mean, you saw it with 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey became huge, and then they were publishing all these like erotic type BDSM type books, and they go with, it's kind of like TV. Friends became popular, and they try to create all these other shows that were kind of like Friends but not Friends. And so with the but there's readers out there for everything. And the indie market, with doing an indie book, you could do that, like where a big publisher doesn't have the flexibility to do that, and to write a space opera about space opera romance, like monkeys or like you were saying. So like even a friend of mine writes medieval romance. She's another local author, Cecilia Mecca, and she became an indie author because she was like, she was pitching to publishers, and they were like, medieval is dead, nobody reads medieval anymore. And she's like, well, I know that can't be true because I read medieval. Like I read medieval, so obviously they can't be true. With me, sports romance, sports romance isn't a thing. Women don't want to read sports romance, and that's just not true. But what happens with the big publishers is that they're going to only have their handful of big authors who are going to get to publish in those genres, where as an indie author, I can publish what I want to publish. I can try something new, and if it doesn't work, I just kind of give my time and energy, where with a big corporation, they put a lot more into that. So there's definitely the flexibility. I can, even with the indie, I can, my covers are getting a little bit of a facelift when I publish book 6. The other covers
I
are
was
going to
going
go
to
up as
say,
well.
people who are listening,
Yeah.
you're going to have to check out YouTube, because you have to see Tina's office, where she's got the really gorgeous abs on display behind her that are her book
Yeah.
covers there.
The new covers still have abs. It's just they have a different look. Just a different look. I'm trying to change it up a little bit. And wrapping up the series, for the most part, seems like a good time to do that. To change the covers and kind of put them all out again with something new. And I'm also going to be putting out audiobooks shortly. So while I had to get covers made for them, again, seemed like a good time to do it.
So you've been obviously using your time wisely. You've been making a lot of strides. And when you wrap up this series, the Carolina Waves, or at least wrap it up for now, maybe we'll
Mhm.
see. You
Yeah.
will be, and we won't tell people anything about it, but you've got plans. You'll be launching some new books that'll be taking, let's just say from this book that it might lead into some other things,
Yeah,
right? Some other type of romance.
I'll tell what the series is about. I mean, I'm not, keeping it secret. The heroine of book 6 owns a pole dance studio. I do pole dance fitness. Janine can tell you I have a pole in my garage because we work out at.
Yes.
So I really, I like it. It's a great, and the pole dance studio. It's just a great environment. It's a great group of ladies. Very, again, another supportive environment. And there are a couple men who go there too, believe it or not, because it is a great workout. So the owner, the heroine of book 6 owns a pole dance studio. And that is going to lead into a pole dance series, which is also going to be set in Scranton. So again, I'll have a little bit more fun writing the next few books based in my hometown.
And so those folks, if you're out there and if you've watched The Office, it'll be a fun time to pick up these books that are based in Scranton because there'll be a lot of great references in there. And I think you mentioned pole dance, and pole dance has been getting really popular over the past several years, right? As historically people think pole dance, they think strippers, but it's really a great workout, like you said. And I've been in your garage, and I only tried for like 12 seconds maybe, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting off the ground. I don't know what the hell. It's
Yeah.
a hard workout. It's a good workout, so it's becoming very popular, I
It's
believe,
it's a
right?
great it's a great workout. Yeah, it really is. Because I mean, kind of like I'm going to compare it to like a CrossFit type thing where any workout where you use your body weight. You have to lift your. This body is not easy to lift up a pole or climb up a pole with, but I can do it. It took a little while, but I can do it. Getting back to it, so it's a lot of fun, and it is a great workout. So. And I really want to, and you'll love this, Janine, because I know you're all about the women supporting women, and we all have to support each other. And that's what the pole books are going to be about. This studio that's very supportive of each other and the women and their journeys, and how because I've seen it firsthand how pole dance has helped them become more confident, just kind of come out of their shells, and it changing. I know women who it's just changed them for the better. Just being, doing the workout, something they didn't think they could do. Watching people climb the pole, oh, I can never do that. And then you do it and you realize how strong you are, and kind of accepting your body for what it is and what it can do, and not what it looks like, because everybody's different. So it's definitely going to be a more, women positive, and it is not going to have the naked chests on the on the cover. So they're very much the women's story. So I hope women will relate to them and like them, because the stories I have planned are pretty incredible, and they are based on some people that I know. So
Great.
not totally. It's
Some
not a
folks that
biography, but
inspired you.
they're just
Yeah.
like they inspired me. Inspired by these events. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun. They're going to be a lot of fun to write. I know this book is a
Great.
lot of fun to write, and the heroine's inspired by someone.
That's great. And I mean, to your point, you mentioned about, and we're talking about pole, but I mean, it could be anything where it's that, a lot of women have, whether it's running or
Mhm.
some other kind of workout, thinking that you can't, and then you can, and boy, what that can do for your self-esteem and help rebuild your life. And I think it's just a good reminder. Don't set limitations.
Yeah.
Don't say that you can't do something. Not to bring it about me, but I remember years ago, probably I don't know, 15 years ago or more, cheering people on a Sunday for the Steamtown Marathon here
Mhm.
in Scranton.
Yeah.
And I was super impressed. And I think I might have been running 5Ks at the time. And I remember seeing some of the poor guys with their bleeding nipples and stuff,
Yeah.
but, and like people in their 60s and women in their 70s. And I cheered them on thinking, oh my God, I could never do that. And then I ran Steamtown when I was like 41 or 42.
Mhm.
And then I did my second marathon 2 years ago. I mean, again, I'll freely say that neither one of them were beautiful runs. I am not
But
fast,
you did it.
and
Yeah.
but I did them, and to the point is, I strongly remember clapping those folks on, saying, "Wow, I could never do that," and then I did. So, I think it's great, and I think it's great that your stories will help to inspire people. And think about that. Just look for people who do things, and you think, "Wow, I couldn't." Just think to yourself, you can. I mean, maybe it's not the right time now, but you're definitely stronger than you think many times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, baby steps. Like I said, I remember my first pole class, and I was in my, I think I was 48 when I took my first pole class, and I'm there with all these little 20 to 30-year-olds. Like, my friends from the studio now are like 30. I'm definitely the old lady of the studio. And I remember just like watching things that people were doing, and it was like, it took me like over a month to be able to climb the pole all the way to the top. And but once I did it, and I was determined to do it. And so, there's some moves that like I would look at, think, oh God, I could never do that. But I did. And it's fun. Like I said, it's a lot of fun, and it is nice knowing that you could do, you can do it. And especially at our age, let's say that at our age.
No, we
It's
don't
never
like that
too old.
expression at our
It's
age.
you're never too old. So I say, like, a lot of people
No.
say like, oh God, I'm, 50, or I'm this old, or however old, I'm not going to do that. I'm, you know, like I read it and I read in a romance novel years ago. The heroine was like 32 or something, and she wanted to go back to, she always wanted to be a teacher. And the hero said to her, well, why don't you go be a teacher? And she's like, well, I'm 32 years old. Like, I won't graduate for 4 years. And, for 4 years, I'll be 36 by the time I graduate. And he's like, and how old will you be if you don't go to school in 4 years? You're still going to be 36, but you won't have done what you wanted to do. And like that, I mean, it's again, inspiration in a romance novel. Like, I remember that. And I thought like, oh, like, in fact, I'm starting an Italian class tonight. I'm heading down to Northampton Community College in Bethlehem. I'm taking an Italian class every Tuesday night for the next 3 months. So, you're never too old. Languages have never been my thing. Well, English is okay, but like other languages have never been my thing. I can understand them and I can listen to them and I can read them, but they just don't come out the right way. So this should be interesting. But I'm going to Italy next June, so on a writer's retreat, and I want to be able to at least have a clue.
Yeah, that would be good. You
Be
want to
able to
make sure
see
you
this.
know what you're saying yes to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I know my niece married into a very Italian family. Half of them live in Italy. They all speak Italian. And, her husband said, well, the good thing about Italy is everybody speaks English. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to know what they're saying. And that's, I mean, I can't imagine everybody speaks English. There's probably somebody who doesn't. So those will be the people I find. The ones who don't speak English will stand there staring at each other, but now that I'm taking my class, I will know. So,
Well, I think they also like, and again, from the times I went to France, French is my language that I love, and I'm not great at it, but I think there's something to be said for making an effort also,
yeah,
even though they know English. I think it's always nice to
yeah,
show like, hey, I took the time to take a lesson, and I'm eager and I'm,
yeah.
enthusiastic about speaking your language. I think that kind of helps to build a nice relationship too with
I
people
think
who live
so.
there.
And like I said, I just think it'll be neat to, even if we're going on tours and stuff, like just to be able to know what people are saying. I mean, saying around you, you never know what you could eavesdrop on or pick up. But, who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll put it into a book too. I could write, a big Italian family instead of a big Greek family. So um,
Yes.
at least, I have a little bit of experience with some of that. But
There is inspiration truly
there's
everywhere, and I
There
can
is
only
very
imagine.
inspiration. There is inspiration everywhere. That's one thing, people always ask me, where do you find ideas for your books? And it's like, ideas are literally everywhere. And I mean,
Mhm.
it's just, you never know. And I mean, Janine, book 5 of my series, the last book of my series called Painting the Corners. I got the idea because Tyler Wade, who now plays for the New York Yankees, he played for the Rail Riders up here. I think it was in 2018. I think it was 17 or 18. And he got called up to New York and took an Uber from Scranton to New York. And I remember when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that has got to be the meet cute for a story. And it was last year. It came out, they met, he was, the guy was taking an Uber. And so, you never know. And that was just again, a goofy story on ESPN, because it was all over, oh, he took an Uber, because it's kind of funny that he took an Uber 2 hours from Scranton to to the Bronx.
Yeah, and I think whether you're a writer or not, I mean, I just think it's good practice. I think we tend to get in our own lane. We really stay in our own lanes with our head down sometimes and not pay attention. As writers, I mean, and you're and I write my comedy and everything, so you have to be observant
Yeah.
to be a writer and everything. But even just if you're not a writer, just I did the some of the masterclass episodes, and I listened to David Sedaris, who is an incredible satirist, and his sister Amy. They're very funny, but, he talked about how there's literally inspiration everywhere, and listening, like you said,
Oh
overhearing
yeah.
a conversation, listening. I'm not saying to become a weirdo eavesdropper,
Yeah.
but like paying attention to conversations around you, paying attention to what people are wearing, to different, like when I go for a run, because I'm not worried about the time, because I'm not competitive. I'm stopping this morning. I stopped to take a picture of this really cool stone. It was like a face outside of a church with a bunch of flowers around it. Like,
Mhm.
there's literally like just things to look at that are just
Yeah.
cool to be inspired by. And you don't have to be a writer to see them and just enjoy them and just enjoy a moment, just be more curious and be observant. And I think life is enriched when we're like that.
No, I absolutely agree. I absolutely, because you never, again, you never know what's going to pick up, what you're going to pick up. You never know what'll inspire you to do whatever. And I do think, like you're saying, don't stay in your lane. And I think that, again, just like even with writing or with using things or at work, you tend to do the same things over and over again, and that definitely happens more as we get older. As kids tend to try new things or want to explore. As adults, you definitely, most adults, I'm not going to say all adults, because there are the few who are always curious. Like, you kind of get less curious, and you get less less willing to explore, because you just don't want to be hassled with
Mhm.
taking the time, because you have so much other stuff going on, is what it is.
Yeah.
There's so much other stuff going on. Like, I don't have time to learn a new thing. I don't have time to, whatever. But you kind of have to make time, because it does make life interesting.
Yeah. So in wrapping up here, I definitely want to give you an opportunity to, or definitely I want you to plug your website, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else before you wrap up with promo for people to check you out? Anything else that you wanted to add that we didn't talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think we talked about a lot. Yeah, my website is tinagallagherbooks.com. And you can email me at tina@tinagallagherbooks.com. I always like hearing from people, and I'm on all the social medias. I'm new to TikTok. I got on TikTok in May, and I'm having a really good time with it. So if you want to see me, if you're watching this on YouTube, and I actually sort of have my hair done and have makeup on, I'm usually on TikTok looking like I just rolled out of bed, and my hair looks like spaghetti, but that's the way it goes when you're planning a video. I'm on TikTok as Tina Gallagher author, and I have a Facebook page, a Facebook group, and I'm on Instagram as Tina Gallagher as well.
Excellent. Well, I think she's killing it on TikTok, by the way, honestly. I was on and I don't know what the hell I was doing, and now I've lost my password, so I haven't even used it in 2 months. So that's my
Yeah.
story.
TikTok is
But
fun.
yeah,
I was brought out there kicking and screaming. I honestly was. Because I don't like being on video. I don't like, but I really like it. I like the platform. I think it's very friendly, and people
yeah.
are people are friendly out there.
And she again, I'm in all seriousness, Tina, she's doing so you're doing some really cool. You've picked up a lot, and
Yeah.
again, that idea of don't be afraid to try new things and to learn. And you've watched some really important and interesting workshops,
Mhm.
and you've gotten tips and you're applying them. So I think
Yeah.
you're doing great with that, and you're just having, like you said, you're having fun, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of, and I think that comes through. I think, um, you could tell the ones that you're just kind of struggling, but this one is a lot of fun. And I find that, people are definitely more interactive out there, and willing to interact with you, even if they don't know you, and give you a chance, which is kind of harder on the other platforms, I think, or it has been harder for me anyway. That's been my experience.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to try out new things, and definitely with marketing, Tina's out there, and like I said, I was out there a little bit, but there's a lot of great content out there and a lot of fun. So check
Yeah.
it out. But yes, check out Tina definitely, and I will, when I post this episode, I will share the link to tinagallagherbooks.com, right?
Yep.
That's Okay, I will put that link in the description of the podcast so that you can check it out, and be sure to check her out on all of the social
Of the
media
platforms.
platforms.
Yeah.
All the platforms. All right. So thank you so much. This has been Janine Luby, aka Funny Wine Girl. Thank you for listening to Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. And again, please feel free to go back, look through the library of episodes. My goal every week is just to inform a little bit, maybe entertain a little bit, inspire, And I hope I've done that. And to Tina's point, she likes to hear from people. Please feel free to leave a comment or reach out to me. I'm on Facebook as Funny Wine Girl, Janine and Janine Luby. You can check me out on all the different platforms as well. And if you've enjoyed listening to this, please share it. If you haven't, please back away slowly, and and just reach out to me and tell me what you'd like to hear in the future, and maybe I could try to make that happen. So thanks again for listening. And I'm still working on a great sign off. So I like to say, don't stay bottled up, uncork and share.
There you go. Thanks.